Welcome to another episode of Mina Cup Inside the Game. We're having real conversations with the people who help shape the future of football. I'm delighted to be joined by a man who I met back in 2004. One of the first people I met in Dubai at that point. He's gone on to have a fantastic career across the game at many different clubs. It's Ross Embleton.
Thanks.
How are you, Ross?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on 20 odd years ago, eh? Blimey.
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. And your journey has been quite incredible. Just if you could sum it up in a synopsis with the clubs you've been and the roles that you've had, just give us a couple of minutes on that.
Yeah, I think varied and unplanned are the two words I always go to. But probably three sections now. The way my career's gone to and where it's at. Early stages, very early stages, being released as a 16-year-old from Leyton Orient, went straight into coaching. I was really lucky that the coach that released me saw something in me, or probably needed someone to cover a session on the Saturday morning, probably more like, but saw something in me, encouraged me to go into coaching. So pretty much while I was leaving school, started there. And for me, like a priceless beginning. Probably how we met, Chris, like working with kids, doing nothing more than giving kids a good time, using football to do it, and in a variety of ways in East London, working on housing estates, primary schools, traditional football camps, and no real idea, no real plan, but just loved coaching and loved working with kids, loved football. So it's a perfect job to work through college and that sort of stuff, really. And then through that sort of hard work and effort that I suppose I put in, and an interest in getting better and watching good coaches, I was steadily helped along the way at Leyton Orient for sort of from that period when I left school through to I was sort of 27, 28 really, and I did pretty much part of every football job that you could do at one club, from working in football in the community, part-time academy coach or voluntary academy coach before that. And then sort of more and more roles that were like combined roles within the community and what we did at the Centre of Excellence at the time, which culminated in me being head of youth development at 25. Through a number of different circumstances changing, I was given the opportunity to sort of see a season through for about 6 months, and was really lucky at the end of that for them to offer me the position full time. So daunting but priceless experiences managing people that are older than me. As you know, like I managed my dad, and like a lot of people that were very experienced. So as a 25-year-old, it was invaluable really when I look back at the experiences that gave me, all at one club that was a club I loved, you know what I mean, growing up. So yeah, it was great. And then all coaching from then on, numerous roles in the academy at Tottenham, under 18s coach at Bournemouth. I did a little stint of a year at Norwich in recruitment, which was my first experience of that side of the game, really properly focusing in on that. And then when I came away from it, I then went into first team football a little bit more. So I went in as first team coach, then assistant manager at Swindon Town in League One. Just about a month short of 2 years, I think. Which in this day and age, it sounds like a long time, doesn't it, to be in a management team. Yeah. And then full circle back to Leyton Orient. So it was at the time when the club was on its knees and had been relegated to the National League, and I went back in at the same time as a new consortium as the assistant coach, and later down the line become first team manager again for about a 20-month period, which again sounds like a long time. After that experience, which was a heavy experience in the circumstances that I got it. Off the back of that, I've then been in recruitment for the last little period. So back getting on for 5 years now. Head of first team recruitment at Colchester United, and now head of academy recruitment at West Ham.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, it's amazing the varying roles and different clubs that you've worked at, and you know, and just picking on that. I mean, some of the obviously the challenges that you've had along the way. How's that kind of helped shape you as a person, and you know, from coaching young players to senior level football to recruitment? It must have given you such a rounded kind of look on the game.
Yeah, incredibly rounded. I would say like it shaped, like all of us, I suppose, the job that you go into in whatever walk of life it is. It shapes you, doesn't it, in terms of the person that you probably end up being more than anything else. Like all your family attachment, your friends, whatever you do in your social time, don't quite make up the amount of time you spend at work. So I think that shaped me in a lot of ways. Obviously, around won't take anything away from my mum and dad growing up, but you know what I mean in terms of them experiences. And then I think at one stage, Chris, it changed my life as well and give me a completely different outlook on how I live my life and the people that I spend that time with. But yeah, like the bits around the thing, I was having this conversation the other day around like how I transitioned from like an academy coach and a grassroots coach, if you like, into first team. And obviously the man management side of it that we had to take on was vastly different. But actually the work we did every day, like the variety of sessions, the ability to have 13 players in 12 and then 2 drop out injured, or this one's on recovery, like that was coaching. Do you know what I mean? I'd always done it, and obviously you had to tier it and aim it at different levels. But the actual work and variation of work wasn't vastly different from what I'd been doing in academy football to what we did at first team level. But yeah, I think the experiences, the good and the bad experiences, because there's been plenty of both, have definitely like shaped me in my early years, but then definitely changed and refocused me in the last 5 or 6.
I'm going to focus on the recruitment side and obviously the role that you're in now, but looking back on your career, how has the coaching experience that you've had helped, and talking about shaping you again, but how's it helping you in the role that you're in now? I know you had a spell at Norwich earlier on in your career before you went back into senior football, but from a recruitment perspective, when you're looking at players, how has it helped you from that aspect?
Like, I can only talk from my experience, and there'll be other guys that have never coached at working in recruitment and are in bigger, stronger, better positions than I am. But you can only ever really rely on your own experiences. And I think that like everything I've been doing and have done from day one when I first put that first cone down as a 16-year-old has shaped everything that I'm doing now, because the constant assessment of players, grading of like what level are people going to get to, seeing a player from Leyton Orient as a 7-year-old going through to first team football, you get to see what it takes to get over each hurdle or each landmark or get to each destination that they get to, or not, when kids are going through that system. Then I had that incredible period at Tottenham where I worked with some immense like staff like John McDermott, Chris Ramsey, Alex Inglethorpe, Dean Rastrick, Perry Suckling, like top people that have gone on to do incredible things in youth development. So listening and learning and seeing, like not taking any claim at all, I never do, but like Harry Kane, Stephen Caulker, Ryan Mason, like England internationals, like you're constantly assessing players, even though your main bit is going out and coaching and trying to help them get better. There's a constant review of the standards and what it takes to get to the next level. So now I can look back on those experiences, even though it wasn't with a recruitment hat on, but like what it took internally for players to get somewhere. And then obviously now the variation comes in terms of assessing, can this player come in and match up with what we've got? Can this player come in and go beyond those levels that I'm talking about? And then I can marry them up with the experiences of like Marcus Edwards at 11 was like this, and he's gone on to play Premier League football. So in this player, he's a dribbler, he's a little one. Like I can use those comparisons because I've seen them, but obviously, like I said earlier, with a bit of a different eye at the time.
Two questions now. One is, how did you actually transition into that recruitment role? And then secondly, what does your role entail? And I appreciate it's many things, but if you could just give the listeners just an understanding of what that encompasses, who's working below you, what scouts you work with, etc.
Yeah, so I came into it, Chris, when I left Leyton Orient as the head coach. I knew I didn't want to do that job anymore, but you know what it's like. Like once you step into certain roles in any industry, like you become that. Do you know what I mean? And everyone assumes and it's what most people aspire to achieve. And if they're a coach, to become a Football League manager. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to do it in the first place. And then when I left it, I knew I didn't want to carry on. But I had this this thing hanging over my head of like Football League manager. Like, don't give him any other job. Do you know what I mean? So I took, which was crazy and really hard to deal with at the time. I took a job in Liverpool Street for about 3 or 4 months to try and completely take me away from football. Best thing I ever did, because I knew how much I loved it and I wanted to get back into it. But through my coaching and management against Colchester United, they had a head of first team recruitment role come up, and the chairman and the sporting director at the time had asked me to come in and interview for it amongst 3 or 4 other people that they'd signposted, and it was as simple as that, really. I went in and presented, and actually building the presentation thinking, oh, this is a bit of me, this. I like the thought of this. So that was how I got into it, simply, and then threw everything into it. And I'll go into a bit of depth in Colchester because it relates to where I'm at in West Ham now. But like the time at Colchester, I was doing 6 or 7 games a week. I was watching under 18s, under 21s, National League South, like National League, League One, League Two, PL2. Like I was covering everything because it was just me. I had a little bit of help here and there, but it was just me. So I just went all in for that first period to just try and learn the landscape, learn about players, know people's names, like get to see what we might be in for or not. Do you know what I mean? So invaluable, because I built like an incredible like library and database of players just by going to games in the outset. That's changed for me now. And it was partly the reason why I wanted to take the role at West Ham, was it gave me the opportunity to manage a department. So I have like 3 designated sort of like phase leads, if you like similar to the coaching world, where we have someone that oversees the 9s to 12s, a foundation phase. I've crossed it over a little bit more in recent times now, so the guys work a bit closer together in different age groups, but essentially like a foundation phase lead, youth development phase lead, and then a PDP phase lead, which most clubs would probably know as like an emerging talent role, but and then we have like the scouts that feed in underneath that. And then because of the club that West Ham is very joined up, we have different people from our foundation that cross over. And so in a recruitment team meeting, I probably have 6 or 7 of us. But like day to day, the real nuts and bolts are me and 3 other guys that are overseeing all the scouts and what we're doing week to week with the games. So that 7 games is probably now 2 or 3, dependent on the week. For me, I travel abroad to watch our boys play international football. We have a development centre type set up in Northern Ireland, so I sort of coordinate a lot of those things and manage the department more than being the guy on the ground watching games all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, how you spend your time, because you think recruitment, you think scouting, obviously you're always out watching players or needing to see players, but ultimately the players that you have in the building already, you need to know where their qualities lie and what you need to do to get better players in, I suppose.
Yeah, and do you know what? Like, I still don't think I've got that balance right at West Ham yet, from my perspective, and potentially the clubs as well, because you're like so focused on trying to find the next one wherever they are, because you feel like that's what your department should be doing, my department should be doing. I don't spend loads of time live watching us. So sometimes I know I'll walk down the corridor and I'll be like, for I5 one of the under 13s, and I can see him looking at me going, I'm not sure if I know who this geezer is, but it's because I don't stand on the side of the pitch watching them. But I feel like my time and my staff's time is more valuable watching other people. So a little bit similar to what I did at Culture, like because of the way of the world now, video data, I watch our teams a lot back on video after the game, so that I can get a bit of a feel for who's performing, how the trialists have done in comparison and that sort of stuff. But that's the bit maybe where I'll probably still need to keep searching to try and find is that bit right, or should I see more live? I don't know. You could argue, I suppose, there's a case for both.
And then when you're working kind of up or sideways in the club, like your relationship to other staff in the club, who are your kind of primary and secondary people that you interact with?
At West Ham, it's very traditional, so I think it's there's a real heritage to the place. So there's figures at the club that have been there a long time that are. I don't think they'd have any issue with me saying like they're proper West Ham. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's the phrase that sums it up the best. So I think in terms of giving yourself credibility and like regular conversations that are pitched at the right level with the players and the academy's best interests, that are those people important. So you've got people like Kenny Brown, who's the academy director, Kev Keane, who has had a rich history in the game. Kev oversees our loans program now, so I do some of that with him in terms of watching the boys and going out and watching them play. So Kev, I have a good relationship. Mark Noble's our technical director, so I don't have a joined up close relationship with Mark, but people on that sort of level are obviously really important in terms of that whole like managing up thing that we reference now. But then the day to day, like we have a real heavy, not me directly, but a real heavy presence in like the MDT meetings, where obviously it's all the departments and different people that are overseeing certain age groups. So my department have a heavy presence in that. And then I feel it's my responsibility to have like really good relationships with the other heads of departments on the academy management team and that sort of thing. So because West Ham's such a family orientated, joined up like tight club, that relationship is constantly crossing over with every department, which makes it quite easy to do that.
Yeah. And then talking about the player now, I mean, when you go looking for a player, what are the certain things that I know that there'll be, obviously, you'll be tasked with trying to find a certain player at a certain age group or what have you. But are there actual certain characteristics that you'll look for in a player?
Yeah, first of all, Chris, I think it's always really important that whatever club you're working for, or when I look back at the first team stuff, if you're working for a manager or a chairman that's got like an idea of what he wants and needs. So I think you always have to be really careful of it not being about you and what you like. Like on the talent ID courses, now everyone refers to it as biases, but it's essentially that. It's not just going out and watching what Ross Embleton likes. It's about watching what the club needs, what fits with the principles and the profiles of the club. So one of the things that's heavily dependent at West Ham is about the club's values, and a player that's going to come in and have like hard working traits, like simple things that we'll all say makes a good footballer, but like respect for people around the building, like a really good attitude, willing to show exciting attributes or traits, without wanting to repeating myself. So those are really high focus for anyone that comes into our club. If someone comes in and they're like highly talented but they don't fit with those values, it's very difficult for them to be either successful once they sign or to get over the line and get in. So that is a real heavy focus for people to look and see if they're like a West Ham type person. And then it's about the profile or the profiling. Again, going back to what I've done at either club when I've been doing the recruitment, about what is wanted or what is needed. So I think now technical is my big thing that I would love. If you told me what do you want to look for, I would be saying that we need higher level technical players. So I'm lucky like that I can go and look for players that I like in that context. That differs in terms of the technical demand per position, as we all would guess. I think now it's like nigh on impossible to be in the game anywhere, but certainly at the top, if you don't have an elite physical attribute. We at Tottenham years ago, the demand was always like one. You could be Luka Modric and be, agile and able to move and chop and turn and quickly directions, or you could be Andros Townsend, who was like straight line, absolutely rapid. So it don't have to be the same thing. Stephen Caulker was 6'8" and an absolute monster, but he had an elite physical attribute. So I do think you need at least one now. You're probably getting on closer to needing more of that to survive at the very top. So I think that always has to be within our focus. And then the biggest thing, and I learnt this the most whilst working at first team level, is the psychological, the mental capacity to cope with football every day. That's the bit for me, is like, it's the best industry in the world to work in. But when you're in it day in, day out at that cutthroat end of it, a lot of the time it's being able to deal with the crap and get over the difficulties and get up every day when you're physically tired or under pressure or whatever it might be, that psychologically or mentally you can tune in and go like, no, it's time to work now. I think that was the biggest thing that I found, and I think that's where it really, you can either become like the very, very, very best if you've got elite attributes in that area, or you can survive and create yourself a career by having them.
In terms of a social side, I mean, because obviously I'm presuming you're working in the academy, that there's some very affluent parents, but there's some kids from very difficult backgrounds. Like, where do you see the social side of it? Because yeah, obviously the mentality side, and that shapes you, doesn't it? From a social side, is where's those things coming from. But how easy and how hard can it be where you're trying to identify these kids who are obviously, they've got maybe from an affluence perspective, their parents are able to give them pay for one-to-ones or give them great facilities, whereas some other kids haven't got that, but they've got a bit more about them.
Yeah, the variety is really different per club, and obviously where you're located. If I look back to when I was working at Norwich, like the guys and the kids were like stereotypically like nice kids from a lovely area, like in a roundabout way. I'm sure there's rather tougher parts of anywhere that you live. Same with Bournemouth. Like the stereotypical kid that we had was a nice technical footballer that had been at a private soccer school since the age of 4 or 5. And then whereas at Orient, and similarly with West Ham now, the dynamic is obviously very different. I think what we see at West Ham is there is a massive variation. And what we have to be really careful with is like, East London's a massive hotbed of football. So it's like, right, we know that we're in a good catchment area. We know that competitively everyone's got scouts placed all over East London trying to find that stereotypical kid. But when you drive, I don't know, 10 minutes, 10 miles up the road into Essex, you're going into sort of leafier, nicer suburb type places. We were doing a piece of work the other week on like kids in private schools, like almost like, don't forget about them. They've got the best facilities, the best circumstances, probably the best games program, best schools football. Whereas a lot of kids in an inner city don't get access to good pitches, nice circumstances and like regular fixtures. So the dynamic is really different. And I think that's where we have to be clever, in that we're not trying to build teams, but the team dynamic is massively important on how them kids work together to get better.
And yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, the understanding around that, and we obviously, from a Mina Cup perspective, obviously in Dubai and the UAE being an emerging, I would say, in terms of football, it's becoming gradually better. And obviously, we're getting a lot more expats that are coming over that have been at football clubs in the UK or across Europe and what have you. And where is it where you see parents get it most wrong when they're trying to basically kind of bring their child into a football environment and ultimately hope that they become a professional footballer?
Simply for me, and I think sometimes coaches fall into this category as well, Chris, so it's not all on the parents, but they don't enjoy the ride. Like for me, they worry too much about the end destination and the end goal, and he's going to be a footballer, or is he going to make it? Like, I hate that phrase, but like, is he going to make it? Like, what do we define that as? Like, I always look and think, well, if a kid don't play for West Ham, like, have we failed? Or if he has a 10-year career, 15-year career playing in League Two, have we failed him really? Like, no, he's one of like a minute figure and percentage across the country. And I think that then what happens because of that, they spend every night of the week with a one-to-one coach and a conditioning coach and analysing their games, and they don't actually enjoy being part of something. So I think there's always numerous other things where different people get involved in certain other things that don't really concern them. But ultimately for me, it's about letting you and your son enjoy what he's doing and being part of something. And as he gets further down the line, we need to tune in and be a bit more serious and start to look at what's going to get him to the next level, but like not let it all be all consuming at 9. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
no,
doesn't
for sure.
in my eyes, it doesn't help. I'm sure there's cases where people can say, oh, he was a very intense parent and the kid went on to crack it. I'm not saying they're hindering them, but sometimes I look and think, are you actually enjoying this? You're giving up 4 or 5 nights or days a week, and you're just worried about when he gets to 23. It's a long, long way to go. Like, just enjoy being the best player, or doing whatever it is you're doing at that time.
And what, in terms of like, again, the Mina Cup and putting on a platform for an international tournament and for these UA players that obviously want to try and play against the best, is like how important it is for for parents, coaches, to play in these types of tournaments.
I think they're everything. I don't do them regularly, but like I go out to a number of different tournaments as a scout, and then I go out as a number of different tournaments with our team supporting them, and like a little bit like I've just said there, really, like the enthusiasm and the different dynamic that the kids have. Like when we take our kids, they stay in a hotel, no parents, just with us, so it's a bit more isolated. But you almost sometimes see the kids like performing or just being a kid in the hotel for the afternoon with a little bit more relaxed because they haven't got that intensity and that scrutiny from other people around them. So I think it's everything. I think it's like unbelievable experience at whatever level that they're going in at. If it's a fantastic tournament like the Mina Cup, or it's a five-a-side grassroots tournament up the road from where I live, I think them things that's what creates the memories. And a little bit like what I just said, it's about, you know better than I do, like looking back and thinking about the mates that you made and it ain't even the trophy, is it? But like the cup run you might have had or the good team that you played in. Like they're the things that are really important. You'll still always talk about them whether you end up playing 300 Premier League games or not. So I think they're invaluable experiences for everybody and for the parents to go and watch them as well. Of course, I'm not taking any of that away because you should enjoy loving watching what your kids are doing.
Yeah, and when you go away with your West Ham hat on, and you're going to overseas tournaments, I mean, you're obviously looking at players from Europe or potentially, if you're coming over to the UAEs. That how I know and I understand, because one of the things you're going to look at, isn't it, is where is that kid born? Because ultimately, if they're born in a certain country and they can't get the visa and what have you, but in those young ages, is it interest to track a player from an overseas tournament, or does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with what you just said there, there's obviously parameters that we have to work within, and we're probably restricted as a nation more than a lot of others. Since the whole sort of Brexit laws changed and stuff like that, so we're a lot more restricted. But yeah, because of that, there is definitely a tracking of the players at tournaments and wherever it is that we might see them and other clubs. Absolutely, it's paramount because they're going to get to a point one day. And also, like if you're looking at a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy, those circumstances are going to change immensely in period or in time to come. Do you know what I mean? The laws will probably change again, whether they get tighter or they loosen somewhere down the line. You could be in a position where it changes, and you can be very quickly ready to act if you're doing your jobs right. So it would be no different at tournament A, the Mina Cup, or this one, than it would be if we were tracking someone that was at Leyton Orient or Tottenham.
And what would your advice be to a parent or parents that have a child who's between 9 and 12 and might be overseas and has talent and have been told that they've got talent, and because we see it here where these parents want to get their child back to England as soon as possible, or they're unsure because they've been told that they're good enough. What would your advice be from that aspect?
My advice would be that it doesn't define you at 9, 10, 11 and 12, so don't feel you need to, and I've given this advice to a tournament I went to in the summer, you don't need to pursue and chase it straight away. You'll be very surprised the level of, this is not talking down the level of coaching in academies by any stretch, but people will be very surprised by the level of coaching that they would get where you guys are in comparison to what we are. There's not a massive amount of difference just because someone's got a West Ham or a Chelsea jumper on and taking a session. It's not going to be that much more advanced. The level might be pitched a bit higher because of the boys you're training as with as a group might be collectively a little bit stronger. But for me, it wouldn't be about chasing it. It's about improving the contact time on the ball. It's about like the boys or the girls as well. I say boys a lot because it's my area. I don't do the girls' academy, so I'm not being rude when I say that. But it's about giving the child the best opportunity to keep developing their skills and operating with a freedom and mastering what it is that they're really good at, whether that's physical or technical. So for me, it'd be about homing in on those in the environment you're in, rather than worrying too much or chasing about too much on what you're missing. We've got numerous stories, and I can only speak for West Ham, numerous stories of boys that have signed at 16, that are signing at 18, that are coming in at 14 and 15. So it's not always just about the kid who signs at 7 or 9 as we're allowed to sign them. So for me, it would be just don't chase it too quickly. Like, just concentrate in your own environment on being the very, very best that you can and enjoying it.
Great advice. Great advice. And quick fire questions for you now, mate. Best player you've seen before they've made it?
I've got to say the best. Oh, which one? The best player that I saw as like a real young one is Marcus Edwards. In terms of what he used to do at Tottenham was phenomenal. But I remember seeing the boy Pereira, who's at Fulham now, used to be at Man United. I remember seeing him at the Super Cup in Northern Ireland, and wow, he was ridiculous. But Marcus had like Messi traits as an 11-year-old. It was frightening.
Hardest trait to find in a player?
Those mental focuses and applications that I talked about, I just don't think you can gauge them. There's never going to be a data source to tell you how mentally tough he is or how he reacts when it all goes wrong or right. So I think that would be the toughest thing to gauge.
Best coach you've worked with?
Luke Williams, Peterborough manager now. Yeah, he done the under-14s for me at Leyton Orient. And then he was the manager when I was the assistant at Swindon, and he's gone on to be Notts County, Swansea, and now Peterborough United manager.
In that same vein, it's not on my questions, but most impressive person you've worked with?
Player or coach?
Either. Can be a player, can be a coach, could be an administrator, just
the
someone
most
who
impressive
really impresses you.
That I've worked with was Justin Edinburgh, who sadly passed away. He was the manager at Leyton Orient. Just an incredible guy, incredible man manager. When I talk about him, still send shivers down my spine. He was incredible. As a player, I'm going to drop a massive name on you here. We won't even be able to pick it up. But I had Yaya Toure do pre-season with me at Leyton Orient. Oh, my God.
Wow. That's amazing. What were the lads like with him?
It was brilliant. I kept it as a surprise. His agent emailed me, and I actually, to the day he was walking in the training ground during COVID, I was waiting for someone else to pull up and for it to be like not a wind-up, but like a cold caller, do you know what I mean? That's managed to get through my filter, and I just kept going with it and kept going with it. And then his car pulled up, and I could see all the lads going, "Is that Yaya Toure?" He got out. And then, do you know what? Brilliantly, I was at Tottenham about 18 months ago, and he walked through the car park, and in front of everyone, there was all these parents and agents and scouts standing around. He walked through the car park and heard him go, boss, and come running over and give me a cuddle. So I was like, that's all right, it's just Yaya. Don't worry. It's not a big deal.
Superb. Right, two last questions. Data or instinct?
I think instinct. I have to say that, but I should say that, like, data it has made my job and does make your job so much easier. Scales down your searches, gives you some real substance when reporting on things, because it's very difficult to sit there and convince everybody that he's a really good player just by telling them. So I have an immense respect for what it's bringing to the game. But I think if you asked me to go down one route now to go and sort after a player, I'd be much more comfortable going off my instinct.
Last one. If you could give one piece of advice to a young player who wants to be noticed by a club, what would it be?
Enjoy the journey. It has to be everything, Chris. It has to be part of everything. Enjoy the journey. That doesn't turn anybody's head, but feel free to express yourself in whatever it is you do. Like if you're like, say, if you're an athlete, if you're technically this, if you're tactically that, just enjoy the journey, but just go and show people what you can do. Go and express yourself.
Ross, that's been absolutely brilliant. Really, really appreciate it. Fantastic insights. It's been an amazing career you've had and having. Thank you so much. And I will hopefully see you soon.
Thanks for having me, mate. Top man.
That's another episode of Inside the Game, brought to you by the Mina Cup. See you soon.